feel like sometimes songs within songs are sort of a treasure map to additional meaning, and that's why I get all geeked out about it.
This is Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek.
All right, one of my favorite songs about music is Casey Anderson's Some Depression. And the reason I like it so much is it sort of typifies what I think a great songwriter can do, both with the title of the song and then the content. And I would argue that there's sort of three layers to what Casey Anderson did with his song. He may not even know this. I may have just made all this shit up. But the first one is, I think Some Depression is the title is a very clear play on No Depression, which was the musical movement started by Uncle Tupelo. And a bunch of other bands tried to copy or go in their footsteps. The second level is Casey Anderson's been very open about suffering some depression. So he's had some mental health challenges that he's talked about, and hopefully they're useful for others. And then the third one, which brings us to this episode, is the multiple artists and songs that he references throughout. And two of my favorites, and one I'm going to assume is real. He talks in the beginning about someone being outside and throwing rocks at the moon. That's one of my favorite, somewhat obscure albums titled by son of a fucking bitch, The Backsliders.
Backsliders.
Yes. I
wanted to say that right after you did.
I know. I almost forgot what the name, who the band was, because they didn't do much after that album, but that was a fantastic album. But my favorite reference is it with Steve Earle. So he talks about listening to Steve Earle, I think 47 times or something like that. And he knows how to play Someday, which is a song from his first album, the one that started to break him, Guitar Town. And what distinguishes that is a lot of Steve Earle's early stuff also had fantastic writing, but was relatively devoid of politics, which he became much more into. So then in this song by Casey Anderson, he talks about all the commie lies. Assume he's referencing Steve Earle, who had a very liberal view, and also has one of my favorite political lines. He's like, "I'd still be voting for Ronald Reagan if the fucker hadn't died."
Right.
So to me, if someone listens to that song 20 years from now, I mean, are they really going to get all those different layers? And they may not. It's still a great song. You don't need to understand all that stuff.
And I think they will get that, only because at that point, this podcast will be in the Library of Congress. So everyone will know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. And I'll be famous long after I'm dead.
So that is our topic for this episode, which tentatively I have titled Singing About Singing. And by the way, there's layers to that too when you think about it, because I am holding on to that format for a title, no matter how many people hate it. I'm just going to hold on to it.
It's like a goddamn onion.
So anyway, the idea was we were going to talk about songs about music. And that I have a feeling as we go through this is going to encompass songs that name drop other performers, songs that refer to other songs that refer to genres perhaps, or at least there are a couple of things I was thinking about discussing, that like the death of country music, for example. But this was definitely one I think we both thought we could just go into without any preparation whatsoever, because we can think of all these songs. And I don't know about you, but then I hit a wall and I had to like go back through my iTunes library and figure out what the hell to talk about.
Yeah, I got a lot of songs on my favorites list. It's kind of tedious to go through all those songs and be like, does that one do it? Does that one do it? Oh, that one does it.
Yeah. And the other problem that I think we both have is that, I don't want to name the same artist we talk about. And, this topic in particular, a bunch of guys I really like have done songs about music. But we've already, I've kind of beaten them to death to some extent. I want to recommend other people. So that's what I tried to do. Looking at the outline, looks like you tried to do the same thing as we go down. I don't know why it is, but I love songs that do this. I don't want to call it self-referential, even though kind of it is, because they're referring to their genre or their category of music. But for some reason, I always get a charge out of a reference in a song to an artist I know, especially if it's not a really well-known artist, as opposed to saying, something about Frank Sinatra, for example. But I don't know what it is about those kind of lyrics, but they always make me laugh, and they tend to be songs that I listen to over and over.
I'm with you. And I think it goes back to that geeking out thing, because sometimes you feel like you're in on a joke
Yeah.
or a reference that maybe not everyone else gets. And in our humdrum lives, that's important shit, man. I get it.
But there are really a ton of great songs about other songs, and it makes sense too, only because the best musicians got that way by listening to a lot of other musicians, right? So it's always kind of that homage, and it does make you kind of feel like, even as a listener, like you're part of this long line of people that get each other.
You did say that we don't want to keep going back to the same artists, but it's funny because we do have a question from Jonathan, and I know from peeking that we both repeated.
Yeah, exactly.
So why don't I go to our question from Jonathan to kick things off? We got a question this week from Jonathan in Winnebago, Minnesota. And that's fitting because I think, aren't you about to embark on a cross-country drive, Tom? Are you going to be in a Winnebago?
I am not going to be in a Winnebago. Neither am I going to go to Minnesota. But yes, I'm going to go on a long driving trip in the next couple of weeks. And if I survive, I'll come back for some more episodes.
Awesome. All right. So Jonathan wants to know, what is your favorite song that references another musical artist? Why don't you kick us off with your repeat?
I will. And I actually messaged you because I was like, oh, shit. I don't know if I talked about this song before. And so I actually went through the old outlines from prior seasons, and I searched it and couldn't find this name. So we may have just talked about it, or I may have thought about using it. But the song I love that name drops is called Dig Down by Bobby Bare Jr. It's from the Young Criminal Starvation League, which came out in 2002. It is, of all the songs that mention other musicians and other singers and what have you, this is my favorite one. It's classic Bobby Bare Jr., which is kind of punk, he's another kind of genreless guy, I think. But he basically, the gist of the song is that he's at the end of the line, that all he can do now is just steal licks and steal lyrics and steal styles from the people who came before him. And it's just a list of all the people that he's stolen from in the past. And he just the song itself just seems like it's him saying, look, this is all I got. I just have to keep going back. He makes reference to going back to the same corpse and just plunging a knife in and trying to get a little bit more blood out, which is gross as hell when I say it. But it just sounded really artistic and cool when you hear him sing.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. And it also has that musical reference throughout that he only reveals at the very end, where he mimics the Rolling Stones.
Oh, yes.
That's right. Ooh, I forget the song, and nor should I sing that part because I suck.
Actually, no. You know what though? I don't think it is. I think it's the Lou Reed song. I think it's "Walk on the Wild Side."
Okay.
I feel like that's where it is. Anyway,
what that means is that for 20 fucking years I've been saying it's the wrong song. God damn it.
I wonder if we could figure that out. So why don't you tell me about your favorite song that name drops, and maybe I'll find out some answers.
I thought it was You Can't Always Get What You Want. I thought that's how it ended. Or maybe it's a different song. I don't know. Whatever. Why don't I do my song instead of
it's a great
focusing on the fact that I got something wrong? Because son of a bitch, you're going to hold that over my head.
Oh, it's going on
post-facto.
Not just the next one, every post-facto.
Yeah, because that's a big fuck up, because I've told about 1,000 people that's like the coolest thing in the world about the song. All right. I'm going back to Rodney Crowell. He is one of my favorite songwriters of all time. And he writes a great historical song called Nashville 1972, where he refers to all these folks that form the basis for the music that Tom and I love so much. Guy Clark, Steve Earle, Townes Van Zandt. And because I have to quote some lyrics, one of my favorites, So I first met Willie Nelson with some friends at a party. I was 22 years old and he was pushing 40. There was hippies and reefer and God knows what all I was drinking. Sorry, what all else I was drinking pretty hard. I played him the shitty song I wrote and I puked out in the yard. So just a very everyday type of, just speaking type of song, but it's fantastic. And I I really, and he must reference 20 to 25 names from that scene, which had such a critical impact on outlaw country. And then outlaw, of course, had a big impact on the stuff that you and I listened to, the Americana.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Did you figure it out yet?
I feel like I found something that confirms what I said, but then it says, Bobby Bear Jr.'s Dig Down gives props to Pete Townsend, Jimmy Page. Others include the Slits, Perubu, Aha, Lou Reed, and Suicide. So I didn't know any of that, by the way, like all those other bands. I didn't realize just how many things he was referencing to. And I'm not sure that's a very definitive answer. We're going to have to keep looking. This is going to rear its head next episode, is going to be my guess.
That's fine. But
what
this also shows is, and we're letting our audience know, we're taking applications for a producer for our show. Because instead of Tom and I looking through websites trying to figure out which of us was wrong and which of us was right, we need a fucking producer to do that shit for us. It happens all the time on other shows.
Right. We wouldn't look nearly as dumb as we do.
Just to entice you a little bit more, it is a volunteer job. So
it's really, I don't know how you could turn it down. True. Anyway, that's our answer to your question, Jonathan. Thanks for asking.
So, Tom, would you like to announce that with season 4 that we've made a slight change in our format?
I would love to announce that. Based upon some feedback, including some feedback from my number one fan, Liz Armstrong, we're gonna modify how we present recommendations. And rather than giving you recommendations from an arbitrarily designated then and now, we are going to continue to give recommendations from then, and we're going to try to keep them from around when we were in college and immediately after college. So basically, in the 80s and 90s is what we're going to try to do, but I guarantee you that we're not going to hold to that. But we're not going to try to draw the line at 2000, which is what we've done in the past. We're not going to give a now recommendation from 2000 because, well, that was almost 25 years ago now. So we're going to give our recommendations from then, which are basically just going to be old songs, or not necessarily songs, but old pop culture, things from long before now. And we're also going to continue with the new segment we have, which we call Staff Picks. And that will be to try to recommend pop culture that is very recent. So at least within the last 6 to 12 months, something like that. And ideally, even more recent than that, but it just depends on, how on the ball we are right before the episode starts. So for our recommendation from then, reminiscent of our days back in St. Louis, Missouri in the 80s and 90s, do you have something you want to recommend to the audience?
All right, I'm going to talk a little bit and then I'll get to my song. So picking back up on the idea of referencing songs or books or whatever else it is that you're referencing, or these songwriters are referencing, one of my all-time favorites, and I found a review that shows how important it is that you understand where this comes from, is from the National's debut album, which was in 2001. So I'm not going to pick it, but I came awful damn close. They have a song called 29 Years. It's incredibly slow. It's a talking song. Andy would want to jump through the computer and just, wring my neck. It's so slow. 6 years later, on the album The Boxer, there's a great song. It's one of my favorites called Slow Show. And there's a nice review of the 10 best songs by The National. And the writer talks about that song and the straightforward writing of Matt Berninger and how he's sort of shy and he would prefer to perform in front of his partner versus, but at the very end, he says, but the song's final sentiment makes it clear no one else could compete for his affections in any real way. And he references, I dreamed about you for 29 years before I saw you. Well, that's the exact same lyrics from the song 29 Years. So he totally
wow.
repeats the lyrics from another song, and that other song is not in any way uplifting. In fact, I wonder if I got rid of it because it's got some very interesting lines. Producer, what are the lines? Or sorry, producer.
Yeah,
Damn it.
just keep shouting, man.
You're fired.
That guy fucking sucks. Get rid of it.
Um,
So what you're saying is that the boxer in 2007 referenced his own song from 2001.
almost completely, except for, well, mainly the refrain. I shouldn't say almost completely.
Right.
But fuck it. Tori Amos has a song called 29 Years too, and that must be more popular than the National. So some great lyrics to 29 Years, which is referenced in Slow Show 6 years later. I would argue that it's not such a clear-cut case that it's a positive sentiment. It's just an interesting reference back. I have no idea what it means, but the point is I don't think you can fully understand that second song unless you understand why the songwriter decided to completely reuse the refrain from a song 6 years earlier. So that's all I got. The other one I almost chose was also from 2001, and I picked it for you because it's the Cash Brothers, and it's a song called Nebraska. And it's about a guy who's broken up, presumably with the love of his life, and he has no place to go. So he's out in his car, driving around in the middle of the night, listening to Nebraska. and he says it 3 times, and he only wishes that she would take him back, but he's out in his car, driving around, listening to Nebraska. So it's a great slow song, but a fantastic reference. So that takes us to my actual choice. And it's a song that's really hard to find. It's called Contrails by Richmond Fontaine. It is from 1999. It's from their album from that year, Lost Sun. And it is probably top 3 all-time favorite songs. It's also sad, but it has one of the most pounding, upbeat refrains for such a slow, depressing song. So the reference is, he references Blue Oyster Cult, famous, not just known for Will Ferrell's cowbell, but for a lot of other stuff. So, but it ends with, maybe you're living in a row house surrounded and lined next to 100 others, streets that run in parallel lines, 2 stories of brick covered in white trim, surrounded by ivy and grass. Or maybe you're living in an apartment somewhere like myself, slowly losing your fucking mind. So nice and depressing. But the refrain is whiskey, painkillers, and speed will carry me there. So guy's got some problems, but I know you don't like a lot of their more recent stuff, which is very slow. I think you would argue whiny. Their earlier stuff was much more pounding and rockish. This one sort of brings both of those worlds together. On our recommendations page, I will post a link to a YouTube video that has the song, and we'll see how much people hate it, because I know you're not a fan.
Yeah, well, I haven't heard that song. I also haven't heard either of the 2 songs from the National that you referred to, but again, not a band that I listen to a whole lot. Richmond Fontaine, I've kind of given a couple chances only because you do like them and you've put songs of them, by them on playlists. I don't think though I've heard that song, so I do want to listen to that. The one that sticks out to me is talking about the Nebraska though, only because obviously I love the album Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen, but just referencing the album to me creates an environment or an ambiance to a song. Like, and I haven't heard that song, but I can almost picture or imagine what it probably sounds like. And just by referencing those lyrics, you get a certain feeling, I think, because Nebraska was one of them. That's an album that created a feeling like almost no other album I've ever listened to. I'm really interested to listen to that song.
It's the first one I listened to try to catch up to you, because of course, I listen to Seeger, you listen to Springsteen. I never crossed over the line until one day I was like, why am I being so stupid? So I started with Nebraska, and obviously it's an awesome album, and I've listened to several more. So
yeah, that's I'm going to listen to that song when we're done here. So my recommendation for then is from 1989. It has kind of a biographical meaning for me. It's from an album that it was one of the very first gifts I think my wife, at that time my girlfriend, gave me because she knew I loved this particular song. And the song is Black Velvet. And the performer is Alana Miles, who, if she did another album, I don't know about it. The album that this was on was self-titled, called Alana Miles. The song Black Velvet got a ton of radio airplay back in the day, back in 89, 90. And I just loved it. And I remember you a couple episodes ago, or a couple seasons ago, maybe, describing a performer or a song as sultry. And that is the first word that occurred to me when I re-listened to this before this episode, because it's like one of the sexiest, sultriest songs I've ever heard. And I'm sure that's why I liked it back in 1989, because first of all, she's also very cute. And you would listen to that and it felt like she was singing at you and for you. But the song Black Velvet itself was specifically about Elvis Presley. And the whole idea, it was her just singing about basically how she was in love with young Elvis. And I didn't even know that probably for the first year that I had ever, listened to the song. But my wife gave me that album, that CD, I think probably when I was, probably for my birthday or something like that. It would have been just after I graduated college, before I went to law school. And I listened to it a lot then. And the downside is then about 25 years later, as we were getting ready for a garage sale, I put it in the box of stuff to sell, and my wife almost punched me right in the face. So I pulled it back out of the box, and now I keep it with me here in my office. So I'll never think of giving it away again. The rest of the album, not so great. That song, just listen to it, feel exactly the same way as I did way back then.
And it's as soon as you said the title, it started playing in my head. Like that is such a catchy song, and sultry is 100% right. And I looked, at least on YouTube Music, so just by point of comparison, they list the top 5 played songs. So number 1 is Black Velvet, number 5 is Black Velvet Remastered. So she has 3 others in between, all from that first album. And Black Velvet had like 233 million plays. The next closest of her list is 5. That just has to be that people wanted to give another song a shot.
Yeah, she's one of those people. I bet you if you went to see her back in 1990, she would play Black Velvet like 3rd or 4th song into the set, and then she would do it as an encore also. That's my guess. Anyway, though, great song. Definitely my recommendation. And for me, when I listen to it, it absolutely transports me back to those years when you and I and Joe Pay were living together in an apartment. I was dating my current wife, and it just brings back kind of all of those feelings, all that sensation.
Great choice. I think people are gonna we should start doing polls where people pick who has the better recommendation.
I think that's a good idea if I could ever figure out how to do it, because you can do it fairly easily with Spotify, supposedly, but fairly easily doesn't mean the same thing to me, I think, that it means to other people.
I'll try to fairly easily do it on our website and see what we get.
Right. That brings us to Post Facto.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
So, Chris, what do you got for Post Facto?
I don't think I have anything, but when I was writing that I don't have anything, I saw you on the script starting to fill in my line. And I'm like, dude, get off my fucking line. I don't have a Post Facto.
I don't make mistakes.
I don't make mistakes. I just say the same words over and over again. So that's what I should do for a Post Facto, is listen to the previous episode and then just make crystal clear to everyone the next time what my most used word was. So
that's one way to go, I suppose. Yeah. I do make mistakes. And in fact, I made one glaring mistake, and then one that wasn't so much a mistake. I just acknowledged I could not remember. And that latter was in conversation about podcasts that we like. I talked about West Wing Weekly as being one of my favorite all-time podcasts. And the primary host of that podcast is a guy named Rishikesh Hirway, who is also the current host of a podcast called Song Exploder, which you mentioned and which I also really like. His co-host, though, on West Wing Weekly is a relatively famous actor named Joshua Malina. And I knew it was Josh something. I could not remember his last name, and I was really irritated with myself. But he apparently, Rishi, which is what the other host goes by, he either tracked down Josh Malina or they met somewhere and just started, having a beer and talking about what would be kind of cool to do. And they came up with this idea of this, rewatch podcast for West Wing. And the two of them together are just fantastic. Josh Malina is kind of a sarcastic, smartass type of guy. And Rishi is very earnest and kind of a straightforward, very intelligent dude. And it was just a great mixture of it. But for the life of me, in our first episode talking about podcasts, I could not remember his name. I felt really bad. He's been in a bunch of other stuff too. One of my other favorite TV shows that was really short-lived is called Sports Night. And he was a main character on Sports Night. He was definitely a secondary character on West Wing. He didn't come in until like season 3 or 4. But he's a really good actor, and I felt bad. I couldn't remember his name.
So real quick before we move on to your second mistake, and I still have none. How would you line those two up? So you talked about the earnest, smart guy, and then the smart ass, funny guy. So which one of us is which?
I don't think we fit into those molds. I feel like we're both smart asses, and neither of us is funny. So that doesn't work. That just means we're assholes.
I'm an earnest smartass.
I think we both try to fill that smartass funny role, and
but we're funny. We're funny to 55 plus people.
Yes, or at least to each other.
54 and younger, they don't get us at all.
And 56 and older, unfortunately. It's a really, really tight demo that we're shooting for.
God damn it, Tom. We're supposed to be positive about ourselves. Be nice to my friend, Tom.
You be nice to your friend, Chris, will you? Yeah, I don't think that's going to be our motto either, I'm afraid.
No.
Although we are going to get an email now, for sure. So the other thing I wanted to mention for Post Facto was an out-and-out mistake. And one of the things I recommended as part of Staff Picks was a television show called Tires. It is on Netflix. I recommend it highly. I think it's really, really funny. In the last episode, I compared it a little bit to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's a little crude, can be that way. Some of the characters are a little outlandish, but I said that the star was a guy named Steve Gerben, and he is a star. He's a primary character in the show. He's also, I think, a co-creator and writer, so he's definitely involved. But the guy whose image was in my head when I said Steve Gerben is actually the comedian Shane Gillis. And Shane Gillis is the guy who was offered a cast member position on SNL, and then they withdrew it because he did and said some pretty kind of inconsiderate stuff, I guess, in some stand-up, at least some old stand-up. It's one of those things where somebody pulled up some video. I'm not sure how old it was. But he was the guy I was talking about when I said how funny he was, because he's the funniest part of the show in my mind. Steve Gerben's great, and his character isn't intended to be drop-dead funny. But Shane Gillis is frankly, he's the smart-ass funny guy, and he does it really well. And I couldn't remember Shane Gillis's name at all, and I mistook his character or him for Steve Gerben, who was, and I think they both co-wrote it. I think there was a team of people that created that show. And it's a great ensemble, but that was a dead-on mistake for me.
Is that it for Post Facto?
I only found 2 mistakes this time, but if we wait a little longer, I'm sure something else will come to mind. Next up is Staff Picks.
Just around the corner from you.
So Staff Picks are our recommendations for recent stuff. The idea being you used to go to a record store and there would be a display of Staff Picks, so the employees would put the things they thought were really cool and very recent. So if you liked Earl, then you'd always check Earl's Staff Picks because you'd find new music that you might like. And they do the same thing in bookstores, and that's what we're doing now. Instead of our now recommendations, we're going to try to keep things relatively recent. And I understand you have something that is relatively recent to recommend.
Yeah, I do. I have, and I'm really not trying to go in this direction where I've now, I think 3 of our 4 or 4 of our 5, whatever it is, staff picks. I'm sorry. I've chosen female singers, but I went there again.
Yeah, you're right.
It might be changing in my old age.
Might be.
A lot of good stuff coming out. One that would have been like super bonus points, because if Tom didn't say this, but the staff picks do not have to align with the theme of the show. If they do, you get bonus points. And at the end of the season, whoever has the most bonus points gets to make fun of you.
I'm going to give them stars. That's what I'm
Are you going to give them all the stars that you're
going to give
collecting?
them stars I've been trying to collect.
So I did not align with the theme, but Drive By Truckers did re-release Southern Rock Opera, which has multiple references to other songs and other artists, one of the best. So I'm looking at Tom. Hopefully he didn't go and pick that as his choice. All right.
Nope.
Instead of going with the Truckers, because I've gone with them many times for other songs, I found a really fun song called Sober Sundays, which I know nothing about, by a band called the Castellos, Castellows, sort of spelled a little different. It's a group of 3 sisters, fantastic voices, some really nice harmonizing that you can sometimes only get with family members, and they might also be really attractive, but I don't think that has anything to do with the album. I'm not fully sold on them just yet. I did listen to they have an EP, which is called A Little Goes a Long Way from 2024. So a new album. They're a little lightweight for me for some of their lyrics. One of their songs is called Miss America, and it personifies America and all the, greatness that we've had. And it says, I miss America for what we used to be. So, which is fine. It's just a little obvious, I thought. And I feel like they'll probably get better as they go on. And this new song is not on that album. And it includes, it's not a duet because it's 3 plus 1. So a quartet, whatever the hell that is. But it's a group.
I'm going to say quartet.
Quartet, there you go. I like quartet because it's not really a quartet.
Sure.
They're
It's not
singing-
really English.
They're singing 3 to 1, man. It's like one guy's singing and the other 3 are singing with him.
It's a trio uno.
So his name is Wyatt Flores. I think he's also a young and upcoming singer-songwriter. In my list of favorite songs, I have one of his called Losing Sleep, which I would also recommend. But this song is called Sober Sundays. It's a love story, and it is about partners staying together through alcoholism. I mean, so it's a little more serious of a topic. It's not at all depressing. It's a very uplifting song itself, because in the end they do stick together, and I should remember the line, but it's, you should never have to question that I will stay with you on Sober Sundays. So it's he's got a great voice. They have some great voices. I look forward to material from both of them. I think they're both up and coming new country artists, and this little quartet that they do together is pretty outstanding.
It's going to take everything I have not to title this episode Quartet.
You've already said it's going to be singing about singing, so you can't.
Yeah, that's pretty good though. Quartet, pretty good. Because I feel like you need to spell it, like the end needs to be like E-T-T-E.
Of course,
something.
quartetta.
All right. Let me talk then about my staff pick, which is also from 2024. It is an album. And my biggest concern about this was, you and I tend to worry about stepping on each other's toes in terms of artists that we recommend. The album is Fighting For by Evan Honer. Have you ever told me about Evan Honer?
Nope. You're in the clear, buddy.
I don't know where I got this, other than I think it showed up on Apple Music, the new Music Monday stuff or Friday, I guess, is New Music Friday. I get a playlist, and it's all over the place because my kids and I all listen to our Apple Music, so I get all kinds of recommendations. Some of them I don't like at all. this must have shown up there. I wasn't sure if it was you, only because it's our, it's in our wheelhouse, right? It's a kind of a vocal fry, warbly voiced dude. He doesn't have a pretty voice, but it's very strong, and it's not really a country voice, but he can do a little bit of twang in his voice. This album, Fighting For, is really, really good. But what's really funny is the fifth song in the album is called Take Me As I Come, and it is a duet with Wyatt Flores. So when you mentioned Wyatt Flores with your recommendation, I thought, well, shit, he must have told me about this guy. So apparently Wyatt Flores is just a whore, and he'll sing with anybody. But that song's really good.
Has he sung with Zach Bryan yet? The king.
My guess is yes. I'm not even sure where I found this, but this album, Fighting For, I really, really like. The first song, the opening track, is called Nowhere Fast, and it's excellent. It's the kind of thing that just catches you, and you want to listen to every other song, just because if there's another one, close to that good, you want to hear it, even if you got to listen all the way through. My favorite song on the album so far, anyway, it's titled IDK, Shit About Cars, but it's I Don't Know Shit About Cars is the song. And the lyrics, I just love the lyrics, and I'm not as prone to quoting lyrics as you, but I thought if I can find them.
What you're saying is he's not going to fix your car.
He's not. It's just awesome. He says, I ain't one to have a plan. I never been the man. I'll fold every single hand. I don't know shit about cars. I tend to drink a lot, and I tend to get real lost. I learned nothing from my pops. I don't know shit about cars. Those are the first two verses. And what's really funny is I didn't catch it listening to it, but when I read through the lyrics themselves, on 3 different occasions, he says, like on the bridge, he says, I'm the last of my kind. Isbell had it right. I get lonely at night. So it turns out I met the theme of the podcast without trying to at all. And it's really a good album. It's really, really fun to listen to. And he's got that kind of voice that I definitely like. So that's my staff pick is Evan Honer. I have 18 fucking windows open. It's Evan Honer, Fighting For. That's the name of the title.
Hold on.
That's not the name of the title. That's the title of the album. The name of the title.
It is the name of the title.
Yeah, it's a title of a name. I'll tell you that much right now. Holy
Hold
shit,
on.
what's going on?
Let me double check my song for a reference. I don't think there is one. You bastard. First one out of the gate for season 4, and you have a bonus point.
That's right. I don't want to see, I don't want to give away any of those stars. That's the whole point. Yeah, that was completely out of the blue. I actually kind of went to this album at the last minute. There was another thing that I was going to recommend, but I've recommended that artist a million times for other stuff. So this is brand new to me and fairly new in general. So
I like it. I'm gonna give it a check. I'll give it a check. I'll give you a check.
I'm going to name your name and check your.
All right. So what does that take us to? That's our playlist next.
Yeah, our playlist picks. Who's first?
Well, super quick explanation. I will go first. Every episode, Tom and I choose a song to put on a playlist. We now have 3 full playlists, season 1, season 2, season 3. I'm going to get there. We're starting a 4th one, a new one for season 4. We do have a special playlist out there from an episode we did with our buddy Jope, and Tom can give the full name of the playlist. I think it's number 3 song.
It's called Song Number 3.
Song number 3, my bad.
And then it has a subtitle, which is a third song in playlist. So hopefully if you search third song in, you'll get there.
So starting with this episode, with our previous episode, we will have our second set of songs for the season 4 playlist, which is available on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, and Amazon Music. So my choice for this week, it isn't my favorite reference, but it definitely meets the criteria. It is one of my favorite bands that I want to see in concert. So the band is the Lone Bellow 3, so a triad. So
I'll go with that.
Not a quartet like the other one. This is a triad.
It's a
So,
triad.
So, so I don't know any of their names, but they're great. So lead singer, lead male singer, lead female singer who harmonize a lot on their songs. And then they have a guitar player who also can sing great. So there's times where all three of them will be harmonizing. As far as the lyrics, to me, they are in like the 95%. They come so close to having perfect songs, but they all just sort of lack a little bit of an edge to them. But otherwise, I think the Lone Bellow is just a great group. If they come anywhere in the vicinity of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, I'm going to go see them. So the song I chose is called All Kinds of Emotional. It's a breakup song. Imagine that. I think I've done all breakup songs today. And I'll end with, because Tom loves when I quote lyrics, the references in the song, he references both the Highwaymen, which must be the most referenced band ever. It seems like everyone. And he also makes a reference to a Man of Constant Sorrow. So both the band and the song, classic song. And the ending of the song is on the porch of your house with this letter in hand. All your candles burned out. Oh, my good man. I watch you dance around in circles with your new man in glow. And you can be all kinds of emotional. So I think the gist of the song is he's accused her of being all emotional. So that was a big deal. Like you're all emotional. In the end, he's clearly the one who's all emotional because he goes to try to get her back, I assume, and he sees her in her house with all the lights out, with her dancing with her new man by candlelight. So that's a pretty powerful image, and that's what they do really well. And all of it is just brought together by their amazing harmonizing. So I would encourage you to check out any of their stuff, but particularly You Can Be All Kinds of Emotional from their 2007 album. Let's go with that.
No, that's not what the outline says.
Son of a bitch.
It's right there, though.
It's from 2013, just a mere 6 years later. And that is their self-titled album, The Lone Bellow.
That is, by the way, an awesome band name.
It is, isn't it?
The Lone Bellow is one of my favorite band names, at least that I've heard in the last few years, because I didn't know them very well until you had brought them up at some point. I love that as a band. My playlist pick for episode 2 of season 4 is by a band called The Sam Chase from their album Almost Done, which was 2020, and it's Write a Song. So it is dead bang on our theme for this one. It's about writing music. It's basically a song about how difficult it is for this guy. I don't even know who the songwriter is for the Sam Chase, but it's just about how hard it is to write, particularly to write lyrics to a song. And there's a great line in there. There's a verse where it says, "So I guess I'll sit down and write out a tune, not just therapeutic for me, but catchy enough for you. This may be a weird analogy, but it sure does seem you're getting therapy for free." And I don't think that's really fair. I love that line. It stuck out to me the very first time I heard the song. It just made me laugh. But the whole song is just about how hard it can be to crank out a song. And I like the Sam Chase a lot. He's got a real rough-edged voice. I don't know very many details about the band, and of course didn't really look them up. But this album is called Almost Done. It's worth listening from first song to last song. I really like it, but for the playlist and in general, I would suggest Write a Song. I think it's really good.
And I swear I know you've put them on other stuff. Yeah, they got a really small following too. And you hear some of the, yeah, and I can't remember what song you put on, but it was great. And
yeah, I got the Sam Chase kind of came to me, I think, through not my daughter, but one of her friends. Like my daughter Anna was like, "Hey, my friend Casey says you might like the Sam Chase." And sure enough, she was right, because I've liked every single thing that I've heard of theirs. And I did put, I think, a different song of theirs on a playlist before we started the podcast, actually. But this one, Write a Song, is actually on one of my workout podcasts because it's got the right beats per minute. And I said workout podcast. I don't do a workout podcast, by the way. I really do. This is my only podcast.
You cheating bastard.
That's right. With my trainer. I have a trainer who's also my producer, and he's kind of sarcastic and a little bit funny.
Do you think he'll do this podcast with us?
Fuck no, he's big time. He's already fired me, by the way. That brings us to the end of the podcast.
I think this podcast, you won. You
I knew I could do it.
It was close to the end, but your playlist pick was, and again, I love the Lone Bellow, got the best band name, but yours lines up so nicely. You got bonus points.
Yeah,
It's
bonus
like
points.
it's like playing Yahtzee against someone and they get fucking Yahtzee twice, and
Yeah.
you don't get it once, you're done. Game's over.
When I was in high school, they used to call me Yahtzee.
Don't they call you like Taco or something? What's your name? What's your
They didn't call me Taco. I can tell you that right now. They also didn't call me Yahtzee either. But the Taco is the nickname of a guy from what was that? The League. Have you ever watched The League? You must have watched The League.
I did.
Taco is one of the guys from there.
Taco Tom. Come on, that's a perfect nickname for you.
I just realized what you're trying to say. Torta.
Torta.
Which, in stepping back from it, I see what you were doing. It's not as the crazy as I thought it was. I was like, why would you think I was called Taco? Yes.
Torta
No,
Tom. Torta Tom.
They used to call me Swiss enchilada.
That does bring us to the end of the episode.
It does. And we have an email address we want to mention at the end. And that email address is thirdsongin@gmail.com. We would love to have you email us. Tell us what you think of this episode. Tell us what you think of our recommendations. Tell us what you think of our change in format, maybe.
Yeah.
Or just email. Just tell us something, for Christ's sake. Just talk to us. Really. That's all I'm asking.
And if there's 4 of you, the quartet can email us.
I want 4 emails, one from each member of the quartet.
We also have a website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. You'll be able to read all of our recommendations. As Tom said, we have a new format this year, so there'll be fewer of them, which hopefully is less confusing. We have some video clips we think lines up with the theme of the show, try to be funny because neither of us are. So we hope that YouTube can speak for us. And then there's also links out to all the playlists and all kinds of other information, including websites from some previous guests that we've had, their agenda, their schedules, other materials that they have. So check it out, thirdsonginpodcast.com.
Also, wherever you listen to this podcast, please follow us, please rate us, write a review if you would, download it. Give us the highest rating you can, give us all your stars. We want all your stars. Try to recommend us. Give us 5 stars. Chris says 5 stars. I think if you have more stars, just give them to me. That's all I gotta say. I don't think you have to limit yourself to 5 stars. It doesn't seem fair. You can hear us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, YouTube Music. I will say that we also have a Facebook page. That's another way to communicate with us. Please give us some feedback. Let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. You've been listening to Third Song In. Thanks for listening.
IDK shit about podcasts. That's our new theme.
That could have been our title. If we had a time machine, we might have changed everything.
Fuck, we would have been popular.
That's the only reason I wanted a time machine too. Oh, and the Hitler baby thing.
I think your microphone just decided that you suck.
Yeah, well, my microphone can stand in line. They used to call me Swiss enchilada.